Have you ever had one of those days where everything feels just a little bit too quiet? Not peaceful quiet like a calm morning with a cup of tea, but that kind of empty silence that almost echoes. Maybe the phone hasn't rung in a while. The TV hums in the background just to fill the space. You glance at the window watching cars pass by, people going somewhere. But you're not going anywhere today. Or maybe tomorrow either. That quiet. It starts to settle in, and not in a good way. As we get older, life tends to slow down. Kids move out, loved ones pass, routines shrink, and before we know it, our social circles look a lot different than they used to. It's not that we don't want company, it's just that life gets quieter. And while solitude can be peaceful, too much of it can begin to weigh on our minds and hearts more than we realize. Here's something many people don't talk about. Loneliness doesn't just hurt your feelings, it can actually speed up aging. Research shows that when we're consistently disconnected from others, it doesn't just affect our emotions, it affects our memory, our focus, and even our ability to think clearly. A lonely mind over time truly does age faster. But here's the encouraging part. Staying socially sharp doesn't require a full social calendar or dinner parties every weekend. In fact, you can build rich, meaningful connection without ever leaving your home. Today, I want to talk about how to do exactly that. 6 simple, powerful ways to stay mentally sharp and emotionally connected from right where you are. And we're going to start with something that may sound small at first but has a huge impact: talking to yourself with purpose. Now, before you raise an eyebrow, I don't mean walking around the house muttering like a cartoon character. I mean intentionally speaking aloud your thoughts, your plans, your memories, even your dreams. The reason this works is because when we verbalize our thinking, our brain stays more engaged. It mimics conversation and keeps the cognitive wheels turning. Think of it this way: when you speak, you naturally organize your thoughts. You pause, consider, rephrase, and make decisions. That's exercise for the brain. So instead of just thinking to yourself, try saying things out loud. Maybe you walk through your morning routine narrating what you're doing. Or you reflect on something from your past. I remember the first time I made this soup. It was in that old green pot. The kids were little. Just hearing your own voice sharing something meaningful keeps your mind active and your emotions tuned in. And don't be shy. There's no one to impress. You don't need an audience to benefit from the sound of your own wisdom. Let your voice remind you that your presence still matters in the world, even if no one else is in the room. That brings me to another subtle but powerful way to stay connected without leaving the house: handwritten communication. In this digital age, we forget how rich and personal a handwritten letter or card can be. When you write a note to someone, you're not just reaching out, you're creating a slow, meaningful form of conversation. It gives you time to think about what you want to say and gives the other person something real to hold, to read, and to keep. You could write to an old friend, a grandchild, or even someone you haven't spoken to in years. You don't need fancy words. Just start with, "I was thinking about you today and I wanted to write." That simple act of expressing thought and care connects your mind to your heart and builds a bridge to someone else's life. And when you receive a reply, there's something special about seeing someone else's handwriting, knowing they took the time for you. Even if you don't send it, writing letters or journaling regularly helps your brain stay sharp and your emotions flow in a healthy direction. It's the practice of forming thoughts, shaping them into sentences, and giving them a place in the world, whether through ink on paper or just words on a page you keep to yourself. Now let's talk about something you may not have considered: engaging in conversation with your past. What does that mean? It means actively recalling, reflecting, and revisiting the moments that made you you. Not just in your head, but out loud or in writing. For example, think back to your first job. What did it feel like to walk in on that first day? Who did you work with? What lessons did you learn? These stories may feel old to you, but they are treasures for your mind. When you revisit them, when you let yourself relive and reflect, you're not just reminiscing. You're actually reinforcing neural pathways that keep your brain alert and resilient. Tell those stories aloud. Share them on the phone with a loved one. Record them into a voice memo just for yourself. Or even video yourself talking through a memory just to capture it. These stories are part of your legacy, and even if no one hears them right away, you're keeping your identity vivid and your mind engaged. And while we're on the subject of legacy, here's something else to think about: passing on knowledge. You don't have to leave your house to be a teacher. You've lived through seasons, experiences, and wisdom that no textbook or internet article could ever capture. Why not share that? You could write out cooking tips, life lessons, relationship advice, or small hacks you've picked up over the years. You could email them to family, start a private blog, or record little audio messages. You might not think of yourself as a content creator, but the truth is, your life is content. And when you take time to organize it, express it, and pass it on, you're not only keeping your brain sharp, you're giving your life more ongoing meaning. That meaning is what keeps us rooted. That sense that we're still contributing, still useful, still needed. Because you are. You might be surprised how many people would be grateful to hear your insights. And even if it starts small, with just one sentence a day, you're building a habit that stretches your brain and opens your heart. What I want you to remember is this: isolation doesn't just mean being alone. It means feeling disconnected from others, from purpose, from your own inner world. And that disconnection can creep in so quietly you may not even notice it at first. But when you stay socially sharp, even without stepping outside, you stay present in your own story. You stay engaged. You stay alive inside. Now that we've talked about the power of speaking to yourself, of writing and storytelling, and of passing on wisdom, let's keep going, because there are even more ways to bring connection and stimulation into your life from right where you are, ways that don't require crowds, travel, or even getting out of your chair. Let's take a closer look at those next. Sometimes the simplest habits become lifelines, especially when they keep our minds alive and our spirits lifted. And one of those habits is the power of regular, meaningful conversations, even if they're not in person. We often think of connection as something that has to happen face to face, but today, the world offers us tools that make meaningful interaction possible without ever stepping outside our door. The key is using them with intention. Let's talk about phone calls, not just the quick "how are you" calls that happen in passing, but real deep conversations. Maybe you reach out to an old friend you haven't spoken to in a while. Maybe it's a neighbor you used to chat with across the fence, or a cousin who lives a few towns over. When you pick up the phone and say, "Hey, I was just thinking about you. Want to talk for a bit?" you're doing more than making a call. You're opening a doorway between two people, and that connection does wonders for the brain. Hearing another person's voice, engaging in real time back and forth, telling stories, laughing, listening, these aren't just social actions. They're neurological exercises. They fire up your memory, your vocabulary, your ability to respond, your emotional intelligence. That's why one thoughtful phone call a day, even just 15 minutes, can feel like a breath of fresh air to a lonely mind. And if you're someone who doesn't like to talk on the phone much, try leaving voice messages instead. You can record little updates or reflections and send them to loved ones. Many messaging apps allow this now, and even if you don't get a reply right away, the act of recording and sharing your thoughts is powerful. It helps you feel heard, even in silence, and it reminds others that you're still here, still thinking, still reaching out. Another surprising way to stay socially sharp is to join or start an online group around something you love. You don't have to be tech-savvy or a computer expert to do this. There are simple, safe platforms where you can connect with others who share your interests. Reading, gardening, history, cooking, music, faith, or anything else that lights you up inside. You could start by joining a Facebook group for seniors who love classic films, or a chat thread about favorite recipes, or a virtual Bible study. The beauty of these online spaces is that they can be as active or as gentle as you want. You can read quietly, respond when you feel like it, or share your own thoughts when inspiration strikes. And little by little, you'll notice that you feel part of something again. It's not about spending hours online. It's about moments of connection that build up over time and keep your mind engaged. You'll learn from others, share your own insights, and discover that you're not as alone as it sometimes feels. You'll also find that your brain stays sharper, more curious, and more emotionally balanced when you're exchanging ideas and stories, even through a screen. Now let's not forget one of the oldest, most fulfilling ways to connect with others: reading and sharing stories. This might sound passive at first, but when done with intention, it's one of the most stimulating social exercises you can do alone. Imagine picking up a good book, not just to read, but to discuss. You can call a friend afterward and say, "I just finished this chapter and it made me think of something that happened to us back in the day." Or you can join an online book club and talk about what the story meant to you. When you engage with a story, when you imagine characters, settings, emotions, you're building connections in your brain that mimic real-life social interaction. It's a form of empathy training. It helps you stay emotionally and mentally sharp. And if you're someone who enjoys writing, take it one step further. Write your own stories, fiction or nonfiction. Create a short memory about something from your childhood. Invent a small tale. Describe your first car, your favorite meal, or the most meaningful advice you ever received. These moments you put on paper don't just capture history. They keep your brain active, your vocabulary strong, and your heart open. And who knows, one day someone else might read those words and feel seen, understood, and connected. That's what all of this really comes down to: connection. Not the kind that requires crowds or busy schedules, but the quiet, steady kind that reminds you, you matter. You're not invisible. Your thoughts, your voice, your memories, and your emotions all still deserve a place in this world. There's one more practice I want to share with you, and it might surprise you. It's gratitude, but not just the kind you think about before bed or write down in a journal. I mean expressed gratitude. When you actively share thanks out loud in writing or even in prayer, you activate emotional and social centers in your brain. It reminds you that you are connected to something greater than yourself. You could thank a friend for a phone call or a caregiver for their kindness. You could thank the author of a book you loved, even if they'll never read your note. You could thank your own body for carrying you this far. When you make gratitude a habit of expression, not just feeling, it becomes a social act. And social acts keep the mind young. You see, it's not about avoiding solitude altogether. Solitude can be peaceful and restorative. But when it turns into isolation, when it leaves you feeling unseen or unneeded, that's when it begins to chip away at your sharpness. That's when the mind begins to retreat. But you have power here, real power. The power to shape your days with tiny, beautiful acts of connection, speaking, writing, calling, sharing, expressing, remembering. These are not small things. They are the threads that keep your spirit woven into the fabric of life. And you deserve to feel woven in, not pushed to the edges, not slowly fading from view, but present, engaged, valued, still writing your story one page at a time. Let's keep exploring even more ways to stay socially sharp and emotionally connected, all without leaving the comfort of your home. Because your life, your voice, and your presence still matter deeply. And the next steps can be just as powerful as the ones you've already taken. There's something incredibly grounding about routines. The little things we do every day, boiling water for tea, folding the laundry, watering the plants, can feel ordinary, even repetitive. But what if I told you that these quiet rituals can become powerful tools for social engagement, especially when you turn them into shared experiences, even from a distance? Take, for example, your morning routine. You might sip your tea or coffee at the same time each day. Now imagine calling a friend every Monday morning just to chat for 10 minutes while you both have your cup. No pressure, no big agenda. Just two people starting their week with a little warmth and connection. Over time, that moment becomes something you both look forward to, something you can count on. Or maybe you're someone who enjoys cooking. What if you started a recipe exchange with a few friends or family members? You don't need to host a dinner or even share a meal in person. You just pick a recipe, try it, then write a note about how it turned out. Maybe include a story about where you first learned to make it. Then send it to someone else to try. That kind of sharing, even through email or a letter, makes you feel part of something. It turns an everyday task into a connection ritual. You might be thinking, that sounds nice, but who would even want to do that with me? And I want to gently stop you right there, because you'd be surprised how many people are also craving connection, especially with someone like you. Someone with history, perspective, humor, and kindness. You are not a burden. You are a blessing. And sometimes others are just waiting for you to take that first step. These micro-connections, these little threads you weave into your daily life, begin to shape your emotional landscape. They make you feel seen and needed. And that feeling, the sense of purpose, is one of the most powerful things in keeping your mind sharp and your heart full. Now let's talk about one more practice that is so simple, yet incredibly transformative. Creating a connection corner. You might be wondering what that even means. It's not a physical corner, unless you want it to be, but more of a mindset. It's a commitment to spend even just 15 minutes a day doing something that links you to another person, idea, or memory. Maybe that's watching a video from a favorite speaker and writing down how it made you feel. Maybe it's browsing old photo albums and sending a copy of a special photo to a loved one with a quick note. Maybe it's joining a live-streamed event or even a prayer group online where you don't need to speak. Just listen and know you're not alone. The key is consistency. When you build that small space into your day, a space where your thoughts meet someone else's words, your memories stir someone else's emotions, your voice reaches beyond the walls of your home, you become more socially engaged, more emotionally anchored, and more mentally alive. And if you find yourself struggling to think of what to say or do, start with curiosity. Ask yourself, who or what made an impact on me today? It could be a line from a book, a kind word from someone, a song that brought back a memory. Then share it with someone you know with a pen and paper, or even just by saying it aloud to yourself. That act of recognition and expression activates parts of your brain tied to empathy, reflection, and communication. Here's another thing that might help. Practice receiving connection with grace. Sometimes we push people away without even realizing it. Maybe we say, "Oh, I don't want to bother anyone," or "I'm fine on my own." But being open to connection is not weakness, it's strength. Let someone help, let someone call, let someone send you a card or drop off soup. Accepting love keeps the cycle going. Think about how it feels when someone says, "Thank you for calling," or "I'm so glad you shared that with me." You feel needed, valued, alive. So when others want to offer you the same kindness, receive it, let it in, because that flow of giving and receiving is what keeps the heart beating strong. And remember this too, connection doesn't always have to be external. Your relationship with yourself is a deeply social experience. Are you speaking kindly to yourself? Are you cheering yourself on? Are you forgiving your past mistakes and celebrating your growth? That inner voice matters. And the more you practice gentleness and encouragement with yourself, the more resilient and vibrant your mind becomes. You don't have to wait for someone else to remind you of your worth. You can remind yourself every single day, with a note on the mirror, with a whispered, "I'm proud of you," after doing something hard, with a quiet smile when you remember something beautiful. These small acts of self-connection protect you from the mental fog that loneliness can bring. So what have we discovered so far? That connection can be built in quiet places, that your thoughts, stories, and presence still have a place in the world, that even simple routines can become meaningful bridges between you and others, that your daily life is filled with tiny doorways to connection. You just have to open them. You don't need crowds, you don't need constant company, but you do need the reminder that your life is still in motion, that your words still echo, that your mind still matters, and there are ways to nourish that truth every single day. Without packing a bag or stepping outside your door, there is wisdom in your silence, but there is strength in your voice, and both have a place in the life you're still creating, right here, right now. We've talked about so many meaningful practices, but there's still one more powerful layer to this conversation, a way to turn everything you've learned into an emotional habit, one that keeps your mind connected, your heart open, and your spirit truly alive. Let's explore that together. It's easy to forget, but emotional engagement isn't just a nice bonus in life, it's a fundamental need, especially as we age. Staying emotionally connected becomes one of the most important ways to protect our minds. Loneliness doesn't just make us feel sad, it can actually slow down our cognitive function, reduce motivation, and lead to feelings of disconnection that affect our sleep, appetite, and physical health. That's why this final step is so important. It brings everything together. It's the act of making connection a daily emotional habit, something that becomes part of your rhythm, like brushing your teeth or making your bed. Let's start with something incredibly powerful that often gets overlooked: reminiscing. Looking back on moments from your life, not to dwell, but to celebrate. When you take time each day to recall a joyful memory and really sit with it, you're giving your brain a gift. Your mind lights up when you remember laughter with a friend, your first day on the job, the sound of your children playing, the smell of your mother's cooking. These memories aren't just in your head, they live in your heart and body too. They trigger emotions, activate language, and bring your whole being into alignment with something meaningful. So make it a practice. When you wake up or before you go to bed, choose a memory, big or small, and let it play in your mind like a movie. Say it out loud if you want. I remember the summer I turned 17 when we drove to the lake with the windows down. That one sentence can connect you back to a version of yourself who felt alive, vibrant, curious. That emotional bridge keeps you grounded and sharp, and it doesn't stop there. Once you've remembered something beautiful, take one more step. Share it, even if it's just with one person. Send a message, leave a voicemail, write a short letter or email. Say, "This memory popped into my head today and made me smile. I thought you might like it too." You'll be amazed at the warmth that comes back to you. This kind of shared nostalgia isn't just emotional fluff. It actually deepens your relationships. It reminds others of their place in your story, and it strengthens the threads that tie you together. Even if they're far away, you're not just keeping your mind sharp, you're helping someone else feel seen and remembered too. And if you're someone who feels like you don't have many people to reach out to, remember that memory sharing can happen in other ways. Write it down in a notebook, start a private blog or journal. Record yourself telling a story and save it to a folder on your phone or computer. These are treasures, gifts you can give to yourself and maybe one day to someone else. You don't have to be a writer, you just have to be real. That's more than enough. Now let's talk about laughter. Yes, laughter. It's one of the most powerful mental and social exercises you can do. When you laugh, even by yourself while watching a funny video, reading a joke, or recalling a silly moment, your brain releases chemicals that protect against stress and help keep your mind clear. But even more than that, laughter often brings us back into relationship with ourselves. It reminds us that we can still feel joy, that life is still capable of surprising us. Try making room for one thing every day that makes you laugh or smile. Maybe it's a clip from your favorite old show, a cartoon, or a ridiculous memory that makes you shake your head. And if you can share that laughter with someone else, even better. Send them the joke. Retell the story. When laughter is shared, even over distance, it bonds us, and bonds keep the brain young. Another tool that often gets overlooked is music. The right song can transport you across time. It can unlock memories you thought you forgot. It can lift your mood, soothe your anxiety, and connect you to others in deep, invisible ways. Create a playlist of songs that meant something to you throughout your life. Maybe you name it My Life in 20 Songs. Play it during your morning coffee or while folding laundry. Let the music carry you, and let it open up space for reflection, movement, or even spontaneous dance. And again, share it. Send someone a song that made you think of them. Ask a grandchild what music they love. Play a song over the phone for a friend. That exchange, however small, adds meaning to your day and theirs. One more thing to hold close: forgive yourself for the quiet days. The ones where you don't feel like reaching out, where you feel foggy or uninspired. Those days are part of the rhythm too. Don't let them convince you that you're slipping or that you're fading away. You're not. You're simply resting. But when the fog lifts even a little, try one of the practices we've talked about. Just one. Maybe a phone call, a voice note, a shared memory, a laugh, a song. Let that be your lifeline back to the world. Because you belong to this world. You always have, even when you feel far away, even when your body moves slower or your calendar looks quieter than it used to. The core of who you are, your kindness, your wisdom, your wit, your voice, that's still here. And the more you share it, the more it grows. Lonely minds may age faster, but connected hearts can stay young for a long, long time. So stay open, stay curious, stay engaged in the small, beautiful ways that only you can offer. The stories you've lived, the thoughts you've formed, the people you've touched, none of it has disappeared. It's all still alive inside you, waiting to be shared. You don't need a crowd. You don't need noise, you just need intention, a few simple habits repeated with love, and maybe the quiet courage to say, I'm still here and I still matter. Because you do, more than you know.